playing the market, and exploiting game mechanics. These are the tools that will help me get rich as I try to survive 100 days in Battle Brothers Legends as a trader. Playing, of course, on Legendary Combat difficulty with no starting funds and the hardest economy difficulty. Battle Brothers is a very unforgiving game on a normal day, but add Legends mod into the mix and you're on a whole nother level. For those new to the game and the mod, Battle Brothers is a turn-based medieval low fantasy RPG that focuses managing a party of mercenaries. Legends mod is the best expansion type mod available for the game. It adds plenty of new enemies, backgrounds, perks, as well as bumping up the complexity and the difficulty of the game. Well, now that you're caught up, we began this playthrough with the Trading Caravan origin that nerfs every non-combat background into the dirt by forcing them to have the Peaceable trait, inevitably destroying their combat stats. This means we'll have to rely on expensive combat backgrounds to keep the party safe, but they will cost 25% more than usual. Sadly, peddlers being 25% cheaper isn't much of a benefit, and bribing enemies doesn't work, so practically no upsides to this origin at all. Guess we'll have to make our own success. Now I do have to mention that this game mainly focuses on combat, and this origin is not the normal way to play the game, or the easiest, so I don't recommend trying this at home. However, I have an idea that just might work to our advantage if I can pull it off. Other than the origin and some minor setting choices, we finished setting up our run by taking the Noble Crisis, aptly named ourselves the War Profiteers, and set off into the world ready to exploit the economy. Oh, and a last note before we start, a lot of 100 Days videos I know are faked, so please enjoy watching the entire 7-hour-long VOD footage on my second channel if you want to enjoy seeing exactly how I did this challenge, with more detailed commentary throughout the entire run. Also, I'd greatly appreciate if you subscribed, as this video took a lot of effort to make. Loading into the world, we're greeted by our two starting party members, the first being our merchant Manowar, who unfortunately is a player character. This is a problem, because if a player character dies, you lose the entire run immediately, and that's a lot of weight to put on one bro's shoulders in a game with RNG. I'm sure she'll be fine. Anyways, Manowar is completely useless in combat due to the forced Peaceable trait. Fortunately, she's accompanied by Eggard, a caravan hand with a great combat potential if he can survive some battles to level up those stats. Oh, and Bloodthirsty's a nice touch. On top of our two bros, we also get a bandage, a sash, some free food, and a few trade goods to kickstart our rags to riches story. In terms of money, tools, and medicine, we have none. So we better get cracking so we can pay our wages and keep the company alive. Our first goal is to sell all these trade goods that will give us the cash buffer we need to get us started. Next, we need to equip our bros so they don't fold over in a gentle breeze. Finally, we need to scout out the best places to buy and sell goods for our trade runs. Buying cheap goods from small villages and selling to larger cities and castles, and the southern city-states, is a general strategy when trading, so optimizing this is key for this run as time is money. In normal gameplay, making money from trade goods is viable, but not as the main source of income. However, now is the best time to explain our foolproof strategy for the run. We will be stacking and abusing barter percent. You see, Legends has diversified the game and introduced many new concepts where some backgrounds, traits, and perks can provide new stats, including barter. Now, you ask, what is barter? Well, it's a flat increase to buying and selling prices, of course. Get yourself 10% barter and you're going to sell any item for 10% more and buy items for 10% cheaper. It's that simple. There are diminishing returns if you get this barter percent too high, but even 10% in the world of Battle Brothers can make a profitable difference. Also note that barter has been constantly nerfed and had its abundancy reduced over the years and is nowhere as near as overpowered as it used to be. Now that we have our strategy, let's familiarize ourselves with the map and its find our trade routes. Initially, we can see we spawn in the north, which is not where we want to be. Fortunately, the town we're next to is connected to one of the 4 harbors on the map, and we can teleport to any of the harbors for a price. For an optimal trade run, we will aim to be around the southern cities because selling to the city-states in the desert is a major part of our plan. After looking it over, the towns and cities closest to the city-states are not half bad, and there are 4 villages that look like they could have some potential. 2 produce ambers, 2 produce dyes, so hopefully we can make friends with them and get good prices for their goods. Seems simple enough, so let's jump in and see how it'll turn out. After spawning in, we immediately visit the nearby town of Deichstadt. Our first day consists of selling most of our original stock, doing some shopping and checking out recruits, but failing to find any good ones to keep, unfortunately. Big cities offer lots of quests, usually good ones, and we snag a find a location quest as our first of the run. It's simple, find a location, report back to the town, get paid. Afterwards, we accepted a caravan quest to the town slightly northeast, but supporting our fellow traders as they are trying to do their run and being the combat support to a trade caravan and getting paid to do so is a great incentive. Working our way south was the goal, but going the long way was my decision because teleporting through the shipyards could get us there sooner, but it would cost more money than it's worth at this stage. At least that's what I told myself. The caravan slowly moseyed along the road, and at the end of the day we chose the sell 25 trade goods ambition to bump up our renown. Definitely not an easy ambition to complete unless you're grinding it like we are. At the start of the second day, we got ambushed by thralls and had to abandon the caravan as we stood no chance of winning. No. With how weak caravan hands are and how our party was definitely not combat ready. So the caravan got mercilessly slaughtered, but at least the game was kind enough not to show our fellow traders bloodshed in HD. Their deaths would weigh heavily on our fresh mind. We immediately got attacked by the thralls because the game wasn't paused. I forgot that the game doesn't pause after you abandon a caravan, and sadly, no, this is not the first time in a playthrough or even on stream that this has happened to me. So after a scary bunch of wild barbarians attempted to rush us, we hightailed it out of there with a successful retreat. With the barbs still hot on our trail, we quickly ducked into the next town and bought our first trade goods, 2 pieces of quality wood. Since we were still being chased and we kind of cornered ourselves with no escape road, we had to do some evasive maneuvers to ditch our pursuers. Luckily, we were able to take another find a location quests from the town so we could make the most of fleeing from our pursuers. Yes, it did take us just over a whole day to run a loot back to civilization after losing the thralls in the woods. A day gone, never to be returned, but at least we were alive. But at least there was a silver lining on day 4 because the town of Eisenholz refreshed its stock and we bought 2 more quality wood for a great price. Sadly, the recruits and quest options were not amazing, so we braved the swamp and woods on our way south to the next town. We arrived in the afternoon and noticed they had recently suffered from ambushed caravans, which was a nice surprise. For us, not the ambushed caravans. Coupling our 2% barter and the bad event with the fact that this was a big city, we were able to immediately turn our very first trade profit of 348 bucks from the quality wood that we just bought. This was a great start and hopefully a taste of what was to come for our small group. Sitting on 2.4k cash from our initial trade goods and this recent profit, we now had plenty of breathing room and could literally coast on this for the next 100 days. Sitting somewhere safe, we could easily ignore a $9 daily wage as our bros forged for food. But we were no slouches, and glory awaits us by pushing this world's economy to its limits. This money was going to give us the buying power we needed to grab more trade goods and more bros. So we grabbed a cargo delivery quest and walked to the next town as night fell. But after arriving, we noticed the small village of Grunfort was in pretty bad shape. So in true not being paid for this fashion, we dipped and headed further south. We reached the big city of Ellengrube on day 5 and found that they were also not doing so very well, but we took note that they were selling gems even if at an insanely unprofitable price. We completed another find a location quest and continued south past the castle to the first of the 4 villages I had my eyes set on. After patiently sleeping on their front porch, morning arrived and the front doors of the marketplace were finally open. We entered the village of Sigao and found it to be a trader's paradise. This was the cream of the crop. But their prices were still a little higher than I'd like in order to turn a decent profit. So I aimed to improve relations with the town where possible. See, barter percent and town events were not the only things that affected prices in this game. Legends has incorporated a world economy mod that allows towns to get increased and decreased wealth depending on how successful and defended a town and its caravans are. Villages suffer as they and their caravans are hard to defend. Big cities fluctuate, whilst castles usually do really well as their armies are in close proximity most of the time and their caravans are personally well guarded. But an easier to manage mechanic from the base game is relations. Doing quests for any settlement or even between settlements will have them like you more. The more settlement likes you, the better their prices will be, simple as that. So this time, the find a location quest from Sigao will further our goals twofold. Before the day is out, we return and grab a caravan quest that will take us west to Shiftdrunken. Early in the morning of day 7, we come across a drunken nobleman stumbling across the road. Naturally, his coin purse was just hanging there and taunting us. So he took his valuables and pissed off one of the noble houses. Look, when a game asks me, do I want to piss off a house and get a decent amount of free cash, a ring, and some furs in return, I immediately say yes and accept the consequences. I play the roulette wheel, I never remember the house names, and I only remember the flags. Luckily, the house we did upset was the most northern one, and I'm okay with that. The rest of the caravan was uneventful as we pulled into town on the morning of the 8th day. Shiftdrunken was one of the 4 villages on our radar, but the town was experiencing a lot of misfortune. Since this small party of 2 was not cut out for fixing other people's problems, we left them to their own devices and visited the other nearby village of Krakenwater. Sadly, they too were feeling a bit green, but they did have half-decent caravan hand for sale. So we were very happy to make the trading family bigger as Ulrich joined the party. On our way out of town, we took a delivery quest to the last village on our hit list, Strodorf. Arriving just before nightfall, we entered the marketplace to find that it was another trader's paradise. Furthermore, the prices of their paint and dyes were perfect, so we bought as many as we could afford and rushed south to make great profits from the city-states. Day 9 was a great day. But before we could arrive at the city-state of Gallum Sandus, we were held up at Sling Point on the sandy roads out of town. Fortunately, the bloodthirsty nomads probably had some sand in their eyes, as we were just happening to travel alongside a random caravan also heading south. So I decided to abuse their hospitality and have them help us clean up the streets, so to speak. Turning a 2v9 into a 12v9 was 100% the right choice, as we immediately got stuck into our first battle. Caravan hands are usually one of the most passive combatants, but this time they were bloodthirsty and rushed the nomads, taking out most of them with ease. Manowar held back, but both Eggard and Ulrich joined the fray and got 3 kills combined for their efforts. On top of the experience, we looted 92 crowns, 10 tools, a nice militia spear, a decent helmet, some ammunition, bread, and a stick. All in all, a great first fight, and only a couple of friendly caravan hands were sacrificed for the greater good of keeping our trade routes safe. We arrived at Gallum Sandus with a skip in our step, and immediately sold our goods for a lovely profit of 1,311 bucks. With 3.7k in the pocket, we upgraded our bros equipment and returned to the north to begin another trade run, as quests and goods here were just not viable yet. We reached Krakenwater the next morning and it was looking better, but the marketplace wasn't refreshed yet, so we headed east to see if Sigao was ready to sell us their dyes and paints at a good price. Our journey along the roads was very safe as we shared it with bigger friendly parties. Upon arriving, we noticed the prices were getting better. I could have bought them and made some profit, but I decided not to and focused on upping their relations with quests. Lucky for us, they had an easy one available, so we went off to deliver a package to Weissenstadt. The roads were a little dangerous as we narrowly dodged some nomads, but otherwise we got to the big city safe and sound. Looking through their recruits, we found a ranged caravan hand and figured it would be a good pickup, so Snorri joined the team as a throwing weapon tank. We grabbed a delivery quest back to Sigao, but decided to take a ship to Krakenwater in order to dodge the nomads we found on the road. After wandering safely across the roads, we pulled into Sigao on the morning of day 12, and now we found that it was becoming more friendly with our company, as they've appreciated the quests and help we've previously provided. This was reflected in their very decently priced dyes and paints, so we decided to load up on goods and look for a seller. A short walk south, and Al Anwar happily buys our goods at a profitable price. Even though they could literally walk half a day to do the same for themselves, we were happy to exploit this opportunity. We exploit their laziness and rack up 531 bucks in profit, pretty solid for a quick trip. Now we don't have to stop there, since we couldn't buy all the goods the first time, we take a second trip. We grab a delivery quest and dodge some nomads on the way out of the city as night falls across the sands. Due to the nomads hot on our trail, we decide it's too risky to wait till morning, and instead we finish our delivery at Krakenwater. Since they too are becoming more friendly with us, we buy 2 amber shards for a decent price, as I head out to find a location quest to grab some easy money and relations. So we spend all of day 14 running around blindly and losing sanity as we can't find this location. We find literally 2 other locations, but they're the wrong ones. It's not until the morning of the next day that we find the location that was really close to the road and not far from town. I have literally no words. Looking back on the footage, we literally skimmed by it, and this is also not the first time this has happened, as I've struggled with the easiest quest in the game. Wait, I can cut this part out of the video, right? As a result of our frantic wanderings, I didn't notice our food stocks ran low and our bros began to starve. Having your bros starve is not good, as they'll quickly get upset and subsequently desert the party. Are we sure I just can't cut this part out? Anyways, we decided to make the journey more worthwhile by visiting Strodorf and purchasing more dyes, so I don't return empty-handed. Eventually we do return to the village and find that they've restocked the market since we've been gone. Joke's on them, that was not 2 days wasted, it's more trade goods for us. So with a nice amount of trade goods on our inventory, I give myself the false feeling of being somewhat successful and I'm ready to turn a new profit. The next morning we arrive at Weissenstadt and carefully consider the Follow the Tracks quest, but reconsider as our team isn't strong enough yet. Walking over to Schrift Duncan, we hope that they might fare better for us. Sadly not, so we double back to Strodorf to pick up the last of their paints. We arrive on the morning of day 17, stocked ourselves up and shipped out, but even though we tried to be quick about it, we attracted some unwanted attention. Bandits happened to be strolling near town and found us to be an easy snack, and with a clever evading and with the help of autopathing, they caught us. Lucky for us, it was just rabble, the easiest and least armed bandits in the game, and these ones looked especially weak. However, you and I must remember that we only had 3 actual combat-ready bros versus these 8. We quickly took to the single piece of high ground on the map and tried a more open formation in hopes that we wouldn't get surrounded easily. First to fall was their guitar hero, as his head went flying into the next hex. Almost immediately after, the scariest bandit was stabbed to death by Snorri's knife. This sent confidence through our bros, and myself, as the rest of their weapons were no better than balloon swords. That all faded on round 4, as our player character Manowar took 2 18% sling stones to the chest and was left on 5 hit points. The bros seemed fine, but I was panicking, as we all know, if she dies, it's all over for us. Only 17 days in, and it would be so embarrassing to lose to Rabble. But luckily we didn't. As Manowar tactically retreated, the rest of our bros mopped the floors with their ranged units, and the fight was ours. However, it wasn't a psychological victory, as it just reminded me of how quickly a run like this can end, and how bad my RNG usually is. Nevertheless, we got 3 level ups worth of XP, 160 crowns outright, so it was not a waste of a fight. So we picked up our broken bones and stopped by Kraken Water to shop and mend our wounds. Actually, we found a caravan quest, so we took that as we could mend our wounds on the road and get paid for it. This was a risk, but it paid off as the roads were clear all the way till the next morning as we pulled safely into Sigao. Day 18 was a great milestone as it was the first time we had the opportunity to buy trade goods for below their price value. Buying dyes for 157 when they were worth 175 felt really great, and we knew our next trade one was gonna really pop off. Our relations with the town and the barter were doing well. A quick overnight frolic through the sands and we were able to visit Al Anwar to sell our stock. Upon arrival, we noticed that everything was gonna get even better. The city-state was having a seasonal fair and buying items for 25% more. We made an insane profit by selling those dyes for 294 apiece. The result profited us 1,993 bucks for everything. I was ecstatic, and also remembered there were still some dyes left at Sigao so we could double back and get even more profits. But before we head back, I found 2 new recruits that could make our profits even better. Probably should have bought them before we sold everything, but hindsight's 2020. Please welcome our 2 new moneymakers, Espen the Peddler and Talib the Servant. Both non-combat backgrounds, but both barter percent backgrounds that will boost our profits. Oh, and from this last trade, we also finished our first ambition of trading 25 goods, and we gained a nice amount of renown as a result. Renown is very helpful in improving your party size, as well as increasing the amount of money you get from quests, so it was nice to start stacking up a bit of renown. Our next ambition was between all bad choices, so we took the Discover and Destroy location on your own, which would still be pretty tough for our party, so we just lived with it. Anyways, we headed back to Sigao to finish profiting from the goods. By the time we turned to the city-state, it was day 20, and luckily they were still having their seasonal fair. So all the goods were sold for a lovely profit thanks to our added barter percent, totaling 4,512 bucks, which is more than double the money we spent to buy this set of goods. Absolutely insane. This was an amazing couple days of trading, and we were able to basically quadruple our cash stack in 2 trades. Absolutely mind-boggling. I could probably end the video here, but imagine how much more we could do with even more barter percent. So we aimed to do just that. Stacking barter percent was even more alluring after these profits. Next, we took the delivery all the way back to Weissenstadt, but with obvious stops along the way to pick up some goods. Sadly, Sigao didn't restock, so we pressed on. On day 21, we stopped over at Kraken Water and were sad to see that their 4 amber shards were heavily overpriced, as the town was unhappy, so to speak. So we begrudgingly left those poor trade goods without a home to be sold to, and also left the town to sort their own issues out without us. We then finished our delivery and did a decent shop to gear up our defending bros, as I was getting increasingly annoyed that our combat, health and safety department kept emailing me and telling me that things were not up to standard. I was totally the one to come up with the idea of increasing our survivability through consumerism and spent some of our profits to outfit the bros. Maybe now we could look up to some of the easier combat quests with less fear in our hearts. We ended up taking a caravan quest instead, and were feeling confident that we could assist the caravan hands in defending it properly this time. Not like we ever had any issues in the past. Cough, cough. Snorri broke his nose during an event, but we carried on camping as we focused on salvaging useless gear into tools and foraging for medical supplies. This caravan was going to be extra profitable whether our employees cared or not. Other than that, the caravan was uneventful as we pulled into our destination by the end of day 22 and camped till morning. In the early hours of the next day, just before we were able to duck into town, a random traveling merchant approached us and offered us deals we couldn't refuse. This rare southern event is a wonderful in the early to mid game if you're looking to buy a handgun or a fire lance. The fire lance is a weapon that drops off in late game combat, but in the early game it is great if you can get it on sale. So I said screw it, this is a great opportunity. We have the cash and a fire lance is a good upgrade for the company. Plus it would be fun to use its explosive power on our enemies. Just before we left on a caravan to Al Anwar, we bought all of the available trade goods as they were low enough in price for us to make a decent profit. It felt good to be able to finally add southern trade goods to our trade runs. In the morning of day 24, we passed over the small town of Krakenwater. Leaning just outside the caravan to take a glimpse of their marketplace, we found ourselves disappointed once again. This poor town couldn't get a break. Bad prices to buy from, bad prices to sell to. We'd have to take our services elsewhere. Due to lucky timing and having daylight on the 25th day as we passed over Sigao, we stopped for a brief moment and checked the marketplace. We were thrilled to see our favorite little village still thriving and offering us great prices for our southern goods. We profited exactly 1,100 from our incense, silk, and spices, and also noticed that the restocked paints and dyes were selling at good prices. Two birds with one stone, this caravan just turned extra profitable right here, right now. But before we could complete it, we were ambushed by nomads just south of the town. With conscripts alongside our newly equipped bros, we chose to fight, especially since conscripts were way better at defending the caravan than the normal caravan hands. With 3 donkeys, 3 pieces of dead weight, it was basically a 6 versus 12 fight, and other than that scary pole mace, I was confident we'd do well. The conscripts were bold, and we joined them as they rushed the enemy. The top flank was cleaning up nicely, but I was making the mistake of leaving Eggard to help the solo conscript on the southern flank. And to add insult to injury, the pole mace outlaw capitalized on this and broke Eggard's ribs and crushed his hand, leaving him on 11 hit points. Luckily we got him to safety, but his replacement wasn't doing so well. 4 18% and a 38% pole mace to the chest, and Ulrich crumpled in just 2 turns. The epitome of bad luck dumped on his shoulders as the final curtains fell. The fight was successfully cleaned up after that, but we lost a good combat bro to the worst luck, and it was tough to feel good about this one. We finished the caravan as the next day rolled over and enjoyed the level up of the entire party -1. We also got straight to selling our goods for a nice profit of 1,323. Even though we were still mourning the loss of our bro Ulrich, we tried to find a replacement, but sadly no recruit was capable or worth the price. So we filled up on southern goods again and returned to Sigao in hopes of them refreshing their stock, but also to sell them our newly acquired goods. Sadly no restock, but we did make a quick profit of exactly 1,300 from the spices, incense, and silk. I was feeling rather weak after losing combat bro, so on the 27th day we stopped by the castle of Sudfest in hopes of finding a good replacement. Unfortunately, they had no one good enough or within our price range. But don't fret, we kept heading north and found ourselves a lone militia bro who was ranged but could potentially do well. So Gerbert was hired, and even though we had a few too many ranged bros, throwing weapons are effective and still fairly accurate at low levels, so I took the risks in hopes it would pay off. We left the big city of Ellengrub, grabbed some weapons and stocked up on supplies whilst we were delivering a package to Schriftdrunken. Sadly, Strodorf had some bad events that made their dyes expensive. Also, as expected, Krakenwater was struggling too, so no trade goods from this trip. We did safely and successfully deliver the package, and it was nice to see Schriftdrunken selling us 2 amber shards for a good price. Mixing things up and maybe having too much confidence in our bros, we took a follow the tracks quest for some extra cash. Jumping into the battle, we were basically a 3 versus 8, and those odds weren't too bad considering it was just rabble. All was fine, our formation was solid, but another round of bad RNG and the rabble tore through Eggard's armor and he got struck down. Absolute tragedy. I swear rabble aren't that bad, and that my luck is just insanely poor. The stroke of good luck was that he only got scarred as his permanent injury, which is one of the best ones as it gives a positive chance to survive more death blows. We pulled ourselves together and head back to town, but immediately we traveled north to find more work and goods. On day 30, we took an eastbound caravan from Weiss's Shack, and just as we left the outskirts of town, Espen pulled me aside for a talk. I don't know why he thought now was a good time, but his peddling addiction was acting up again. And he said they needed his fix, and that a loan of 500 crowns would get him there. I'm not a gambler, but I believe in the heart of the barter percent, so I told him to go for it. Luckily, we got a good event dice roll, and Espen found a way to make 270 bucks profit, and gain a permanent resolve to boot. Nice. Other than the side hustle, our caravan was uneventful for the rest of the journey, save some scaredy cat brigands who didn't want to challenge us on the roads. We pulled into town on day 32 and were happy to gain 2 levels from our training efforts whilst camping. I was shocked as I entered the marketplace of the big city of Ellengrub. They were selling gems and salt for a reasonable price for the first time ever. I was happy to scoop these goods up for a future profit. After buying some tools and window shopping for the famed items at the weaponsmith, we jumped back on the roads with another caravan back west. Quick, easy, and painless was the journey, and our arrival in Krakenwater felt just as it always had been. The small village was yet again in peril. However, this time the prices were unaffected as they had 3 amber shards for sale at the amazingly low price of 225 each. Oh, how the turntables! Another profitable town has been added to our collection. They also offered us a delivery back to Ellengrub, but we couldn't say no, so off we went. We took a detour to Strodorf and arrived before the day's end to find their prices were negatively affected by ambushed trade routes. With good relations and barter percent, I could have bought the goods, but was greedy and decided to wait for a better asking price. Leaving with the cover of night and with autopathing to guide us, yes, we stumbled into a perfect ambush. How wonderful. Mistake number 2 was hoping that the auto retreat button would save us. There are 4 things in this world that are absolute: death, taxes, autopathing failing you, and the auto retreat failing you. So I gave myself a safe scum pass, as I absolutely hate losing anything to auto retreat, and highly suggest that you all lose faith in this horrible button. Luckily, the auto retreat did give me inside information on how this gigantic 15-strong enemy group was choosing to fight, and that 4 dogs are very rough to deal with. So I decided that a manual retreat would be just as frustrating, and the only way out was either with a fighting retreat or a successful fight to win. Now strap yourselves in, we're in the biggest fight yet. Effectively a 3 versus 15, outnumbered 5 to 1, the odds were against us. Yeah, I wasn't prepared and was fully expecting the worst, but it was a do or die here, so I put all of my effort and skills to keep this party alive somehow. As expected, we got rushed by the dogs, but only 2 at a time. This was a good thing. The free high ground and the impassable boulder were gigantic assets, and I worked our formation around them. Huddling our peaceful bros and putting Gerbert on that high ground would give him the higher accuracy and keep the top flank safe with his reach spear. Early on, we exploded the scariest threat on the field, the hammer bro. With the dog kill as well, Snorri grabbed 2 great kills at the end of round 2. As expected, the rabble quickly flanked us, but Gerbert, with his reach, was able to one-shot the one holding the weaponized musical instrument. Another dog falls, but now we have a scary sickle and a dog both threatening the helpless Talib up there, while Espen is getting threatened by the less dangerous guy with the stick. We were quickly winning the morale game as the dog was already fleeing in front of us, and a few other white flags were beginning to rise. At the start of round 4, there were still 11 enemies left, but immediately another threat was evaporated as Gerbert skewered him with his warfork. Top flank was completely saved at this point. The Shovel Master forgot to wear a shirt to work today, and got sliced in half with a single sweep of Eggert's sword. Immediately afterwards, Snorri sealed our victory by piercing through the chest of the last sickle wielder, the final threat on the field. White flags abound and bodies falling left and right, I was ecstatic to see our bare bones of a company survive such an outnumbered fight. The turtle tactics won us this time, I was happy, but I knew this was only a taste of what was to come, and things would only get harder from here. 9 coins and some XP and a couple other weapons and supplies were all we had to show for our desperation. We took it all and decided never to cross this path ever again. We finished our delivery by the next morning and set out to Sudfest for armor and weapon upgrades after our brush with death. Surprisingly, found them to be wanting of our trade goods for a great price, so we made a lovely profit of 949. Using our profits wisely, we bought upgrades, armor, and fashion for our combat bros so they could better defend our moneymakers. I considered buying an endgame two-handed axe for Eggert, but talked myself out of it as I thought he needed more stats to grow into it. Also, it was a bit expensive. To continue our trading empire, we returned to our most reliable partner, Sigao. But since it was night, we grabbed a follow the tracks quest to grab some extra cash as we waited till morning. It was only 10 rabble, so I wasn't too afraid. However, I camped next to them till morning as I thought our non-combat slinger bros would do better in the light. Unfortunately, I was wrong. But a starting high ground gave me hope as we focused our formation and killing quickly as usual. Both dogs were down immediately, and at the start of round 2, Gerbert's warfork took out the annoying wooden spear dude in an instant. Eggert was left to defend the top flank by himself, and RNG was getting the better of him as his hit after hit was going through his shield. Snorri didn't fare much better as a wooden flail rabble got a couple lucky hits to his face. However, it was my faith in Eggert that ultimately failed him. The bad RNG also did help. But moving Snorri up earlier could have alleviated the pressure, but ultimately he was struck down in round 6, practically at the end of the battle. The price of my failure was the loss of his offhand. Luckily I didn't buy him that two-handed axe, right? Yeah. Anyways, we returned to Sigao and were feeling sad at the loss of our valuable bros, Lim. Unfortunately, our favorite town provided us no solace as their missing villagers problem was still present, and their prices weren't low enough for me to feel safe enough to profit from them. Tail between our legs, we camped outside of town before we decided to head elsewhere. Just as we were finishing up, Eggert had a mental break and decided to slap the buckets out of the locals' hands whilst kicking women into the mud. I was taken aback at this unprofessional display of emotions, at our most trusted city and supplier no less. This was a very rough break, as this event cuts your reputation with the town considerably, so all the work we just put into Sigao was gone in an instant of emotional regret. From highs to lows, this is our story. But we can rebuild our friendship, so we aim to do just that, just not right now. We had 10k stockpiled up and we were doing so well, but the trade must go on. We decided to return to Krakenwater for amber shards, but they didn't restock yet. We tried Shift Drunken and found 2 shards for a good price, but more importantly, I remembered a part of myself. My one true love has not been utilized once in this last 36 days of this playthrough. I'm speaking of course about nets! The glorious nets! I had 3 perfectly abled bodies in our back ranks that were built to throw nets. Cause for sure they couldn't do anything else in combat, so may as well give them a net. For those unacquainted with the best item in all of Battle Brothers, let me give you a quick crash course. This is a net. Nets are the perfect accomplice to bullying enemies to a pulp. They reduce their defenses as they helplessly flail. Oh wait, they just broke out. Damn it. Okay, throw another net. And that's all you need to know about nets. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, where were we? Ah yes, with the new wind in my step, we took a caravan east to keep the cash flowing, reputation rising, and enjoying being paid to go camping. As we neared the crossroads, an old retired soldier met us with intrigue on his face. He noticed we were sellswords, and as a retired sellsword himself, he generously donated his old sword and armor piece for the company's success. Our insanely selfless and altruistic peddler Espen decided that the free sword and armor wasn't enough, so he begged the old retiree for some cash to go along with the gifts. And you know what? The guy said yes. I don't know why. Why did he say yes? But sheesh, it was 99 bucks. I'll see myself out. We stopped the caravan briefly at Sigao, but sadly they were still upset and had bad prices for us. This would take a bit longer to mend those bridges. The rest of the caravan's journey was completely uneventful, thankfully, and we arrived safely at our destination. We made a small profit of 245 bucks from the 2 shards. The goods at Al Anwar were sadly not cheap enough to buy, but they did offer us a delivery to Sigao, which we took in a hurry as we knew it would start mending our relationships with them. We made quick work of the quest and noticed Sigao was asking for their own delivery to be completed, so we hastily grabbed it and went to deliver the package to Krakenwater. The roads were getting a bit dangerous near the mountains, but luckily the local law enforcement dispatched them with ease. Our delivery was easily successful, and it was nice to see that Krakenwater had both of their amber collectors fixed at the same time, and their prices were low, so 4 shards were ours to sell. Continuing westward, we stopped by Schiffdrunken to pick up 2 more shards, and we reached Weissenstadt by nightfall and camped in the morning to access their markets. I didn't realize that our relationships with this big town was doing so well, but it was definitely reflected when I saw their peat bricks and amber shards becoming rather decent in price. So we added their goods to our supply and joined a caravan heading east to Sudfest, gaining free training experience along the way as usual. Despite the busy and somewhat scarier roads, we arrived at nightfall in one piece. As usual, we camped till the morning so we could see what benefits our trade caravan brought to the markets and shops of this big castle. After enjoying the window shopping, we were devastated to see a common occurrence emerging through our travels. Cheap combat backgrounds were few and far between, and most of the ones available had costs through the roof. This didn't bode well, as we recently had new space for new bros due to our renown increasing, but we didn't want to spend most of our fortune on just one guy. We stayed safe with our cash and headed south to check on Sigao. A stroke of good fortune, the town prices were back to a lovely low level. No thanks to a person who shall remain unnamed. But it was a wonderful sight to see that we were back in the good books of our favorite village. We happily stocked up on all of their dyes and paints and were keen to continue making profits from this section of our trade run. However, before we were able to leave our beloved town, a certain quest caught my eye. A one skull ending nightmares quest. With our overstocked stash of nets, we were more than prepared to make a free bank off an Alp quest. So we camped till midnight and allowed ourselves to be ambushed by the Dream Eaters. Weirdly enough, it was only 3 enemies, and one of them was a direwolf. I'll skip the dramatics, the fight was a walk in the park. Nets are the ultimate kryptonite of Alps, and it turns them into the pastiest punching bags you've ever seen. For some reason, Alps can't free themselves from nets, and it stops them from teleporting around the map, making them very predictable and very easy to pin down. We used 4 nets in total, the direwolf didn't stand a chance, and the Alps fell shortly afterwards. Quest complete and easy money obtained. Sadly, the market wasn't refreshed, but we still had plenty of goods to profit from. So southward we went, and Al Anwar did the usual of giving us lovely profits, this time amounting to a solid 3,649. To celebrate our good prices, and with more space available in the party, we hired a new peddler by the name of Radwan. Once again, we could have made extra bucks if we did this before selling the goods, but at least our barter percent was climbing. We are currently sitting on 13% barter, which is quite nice and helping to pull in these lovely profits. The next day we doubled back to Sigao, but they didn't restock their goods yet, so we kept moving. We stopped at Sudfest, but they didn't have any backgrounds we wanted or could afford. We still had an empty slot in our party, and I was determined to fill it with good combat backgrounds to defend our 4 weak and helpless net throwers. By midday we reached Ellengrube and took a find a location quest for an easy 300. No sweat, but they didn't have anything else for us, so we headed west. After using the slower but safer path through the mountains, because of certain events that have scarred us for life, we stopped by Strodorf and happily picked up cheap dyes and paints. They also sold wine, but since food spoils over time, it loses its value over time as well. Not the most stable of profits unless you can sell it immediately, and I wasn't about that this time. Weissenstadt welcomed us with open arms on day 47, and we also got decent prices for their bricks and shards. We couldn't say no to delivering a package to Sigao, so off we went whilst detouring for more goods along the way. Briefly stopped in Schiffdrunken, we grabbed more nets, as ours broke in the last fight, one use only sadly, but also grabbed 2 of their shards for pretty cheap. Krakenwater too was selling their shards for cheap, and it was here, almost halfway through our playthrough, that I really felt a sense of trade stability. This was looking up. The 4 villages we scouted at the beginning of the playthrough, they were finally all successful and profitable cogs in our trade machine. Mind you, it took some effort to reach this point, but it felt really good as we did our trade circuits. Other than a double jump scare along the Danger Pass, our journey was uneventful as we safely pulled into Sigao. As we hoped, they did restock completely, and their prices were great. With a completely stocked inventory of goods from across the lands, we were keen to see the juicy profits. Other than being literally chased across the sands by nomads, we strolled into the city-state of Al Anwar in one piece with our goods ready to sell. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for us, their warehouse got burnt down recently and we're buying items for 5% more. That, added with our lovely barter percent and slowly growing relations, amounted to a glorious profit of 5,750. 3 days work of wandering the lands, but it always felt so good to see that cash just flow right into our pockets. Day 49, we went to start the trade route all over again, and quickly stopping by Sigao, we noticed something magical was happening before our very eyes. Yes, our favorite little baby village was finally growing up. See, a really cool thing about world economy is that if a settlement of any size thrives well enough, they will be able to upgrade and improve their town in one way or another. We've babysat, traded, and quested this little village for 49 days, and because of that, their wealth kept growing now to the point where they were economically capable of improved infrastructure. I can't wait to see what gets improved. Oh, and yes, they did also restock their dyes and paints. In the short time we were in the desert, so more goods for us. Sudfest didn't have much, but Ellen Group had decent prices for their salts and gems. The midway point of the run, day 50, and we were halfway through a trade run when Snorri decided he'd somehow fumble during a training exercise and split his entire hand open. One of the worst temporary injuries to get. Ouch. A quick pit stop and we wrapped it up in multiple band-aids, hoping no infection came to make his life worse. Other than the unexpected flesh wound, it was halfway through the run, the midpoint, so I feel as though it would be fun to give a few numbers on how our trading business has been doing over the last 50 days. Excluding our free starting funds of $1,783 from those initial goods, and through a steadily increasing barter percent of up to 13%, increased relations, and exploiting the events plaguing towns, we have made a whopping $23,028 profit, just from the profits of selling trade goods. And this is all from a turnover of over $64,000. That is a 36% profit result. Pretty good if I say so myself. This doesn't even include the money made from fights and quests completed along the way. Welcome to trading. But I don't think we're stopping here. We still have 50 more days of trading to go, and the profits are only going to keep getting better and better. Oh, yeah, right. We last left our band of traders at the mountain pass heading west to Strodorf. Upon reaching the village, yeah, they got hit again. Their town was struggling and the prices were bad. Oh, wait, where did they? Oh, look, the traders are already halfway down the road. So much for supporting the community. Right, westward we continued, and what do you know? Night bandits and autopathing equals an ambush. Karma. Oh crap, it's actually thugs with actual armor. That's gonna be a note from me. Peace. By manually retreating as close to the edge as possible and netting the 2 dogs, we got out safe and sound. Wait, what was that? Bad RNG, and we only got out with 6 bros? Well, who was? Oh yeah, level 4 Gerbert was left behind to die. Retreating is rough. RNG is rough. Don't do RNG, kids. Anyways, his sacrifice wasn't in vain as we were able to successfully escape to Weissenstadt with all of our money. The city didn't offer much, not even shelter from the bandits, so we used the power of money to teleport away from the bandits and continue our trade run. Man, I hope we can find more combat backgrounds to fill these spots. 1.5 men are really not suited to fighting thugs and keeping the party safe. Shift Drunken had nothing, but a quick telly to Krakenwater was just as sad, since they too were suffering from bad events. At a first glance, the second half of this run was not looking so good. Hiring was on my mind, and Gallo Sandus was close by for profits and recruits. No issues getting there, but no good recruits either. Drat. They at least bought our goods for a solid 2,100 profit, and we got their goods for a good price too. Continuing the rounds, we reached Ellengrub on day 52, but terrified villagers foiled everything we were looking for. Bad prices, bad recruits. We checked into Sudfest the next morning and were happy the castle was buying our southern goods for a nice price, profiting us a total of 1,368. It was now with a weakened party and increased desperations to find good recruits that I succumbed to an expensive purchase. I am grateful for my earlier hesitation on that 2-handed great axe, but now I believe Egerd is deserving of a damage upgrade as his responsibility to protect this company has increased. We bought a fighting axe. Yup, just outright, 3.5 grand. I know we had 19k in the wallet, but that's still an expensive purchase. I really hope it was a good call. We then returned to Sigao, and we're glad to see they restocked, but no good recruits or quests. Of course, we bought them out of their stock and headed south to cash out immediately. We arrived before the day was through and made a quick profit of 2,476. We also picked up the local goods as they were all well priced. I was feeling reckless and brave at the sight of a southern caravan, knowing they're well protected, and since we haven't done a nice quest in a while, I accepted. However, this turned out to be a complete mistake. Unforeseen, but a complete mistake. We had only just got to the edge of the desert before an undead army attacked our caravan. Why? How? I don't know. But there was no way on this earth I was fighting 1 priest, 1 honor guard, 3 legionaries, and an auxiliary. I chose life for us, not the caravan. The caravan may or may not have survived. I don't know. I never looked back. We returned to Sigao, but they hadn't restocked. What we did notice was a bunch of orcs hanging around the village, and they noticed us, so we 100% booked it. I really wasn't warming up to the world post 50 days as a trader. Fortunately, I got the law involved, and they dealt with those verdantly pigmented troublemakers. A quick hop, skip, and a mountain climb away, we visited Strodorf again, and this time they were happy to see us, and greeted us with limited stock but good prices. Maybe things could be looking up again. It was probably just a bad week for the world at large. Yeah. Everyone has bad weeks. These ones just have undead and greenskins committing unregulated murder of peasants and caravans. That's all. Pretty normal stuff. In the afternoon, we approached the famous crossroads again, and this time we came across escaped laborers. Anyway, some guy with high-vis vests, clipboards, and whips turned around asking where their unpaid workforce was. We said we had no clue. Kind of lying, but they could have been looking for literally anyone, right? No names, no mugshots provided, so how are we supposed to know? Anyways, once the threatening set of muscles on legs departed, the laborers were grateful and one of them asked to join us. I said yes, but found out it was just a milkmaid, a non-combat background with no barter percent. So I dismissed her, letting her out into the streets alone, free to live her own life in this wonderful and totally safe world. But I did take her clothes and weapons before she left. Can't let free loot go to waste, of course. Well, where were we? Ah yes, we reached Weissenstadt by nightfall and checked the town for the usual in the morning. Overpriced recruits were disheartening, but nicely priced trade goods and a delivery quest were enough to keep us going. We took our usual detours picking up amber shards from both Shift-Drunken and Krakenwater. We finished our delivery at Ellengroup on the morning of day 57. We also found their goods to be well priced and added them to our growing inventory. But I also noticed the town was liking us a lot more, and with our benefits combined, they were offering high-end prices for the goods we already collected. So we earned a profit of 1976. Nice. A quick walk to Sudfest and we were able to sell the gems and salt for an immediate profit of 588 as well. We were able to stop by Sigao before the day's end, but sadly they had been recently raided and had villagers missing. Probably those greenskins had something to do with it, but at least they were still upgrading the village, so that's a plus. Sadly their goods are overpriced, so we just wandered south in search of recruits. It was a dud sadly, nothing of value for us here. And since we just cleaned up the city to the north, I decided a risky trek through the desert could get us to Galamsandus faster. Yeah, no. Nomadic, sand-ridden, sunburned camel riding greenskins? Surely not, but I swear they were there to stop us making a shortcut. Luckily, I knew my loop-de-loop tactics and ditched them with some micro, as an autopathing would sure have gotten us killed. Anyways, we safely reached the city-state, so I'm very glad we did. For the first time in a while, we found ourselves with a worthwhile combat recruit. Ramadan was a light in a dark world for our little band of traders. Great potential as a tank, and very much needed in our weakened state. Also, their goods were worth buying, so that was just a great day altogether. After a bit of equipment purchases, we accepted a caravan quest to escape this increasingly dangerous desert, but mainly to continue the trade runs and recruit finding. Though in hindsight, this was a risky move. We were not known for our great defense of caravans. Undead ambush literally 5 days ago, cough cough. Anyways, we stopped in at Krakenwater and found their prices were still shot, but at least we could sell our new goods for an okay profit of 1,256. We left town just as night was closing in, and we were immediately ambushed by something. I was pretty sure it was orcs, and knew that this was almost completely unwinnable as an initial reaction. For the sake of testing our new party's strength, I decided to play out the fight and see... yeah, we got wrecked. It wasn't pretty. We won it, but what cost? Yeah, well, at least the save scum was only for science. Orcs are a very hard difficulty jump for almost every party, but I was still surprised at how well we did. Anyways, what a surprise, we let another caravan die due to our incompetence. Definitely in it for the profits and not for the camaraderie, eh? So we hightailed it out of there and visited Sudfest, but they had nothing good. Just as we were headed south, I noticed something. Yes, it's finally happened. 12 days later, and Sigao had finally finished their upgrades. The small village we once knew was no more. It was big city Sigao now. Our nurturing, trading, and babysitting had paid off, and I've never been more proud. I was also worried their prices would worsen as their economy grew, but after checking in on them, I was happy to see they still welcomed us with good prices like we were used to. To celebrate, we obviously bought all their goods, but were also honored to be the first to deliver a package for the expanded city. However, you should know by now that the trading crow travels not in straight lines, but with detours. We immediately sold our paints and dyes to Al Anwar for a nice 1745 profit. Now, this time, I didn't use the desert as a shortcut, I learned my lesson. But I kept on detouring back north to Sigao, Sudfest, and Ellengroup, mainly looking for recruits and restocks of trade goods. Other than beating up some prostitutes and their bodyguards for a quick buck, Nothing came of our distracted pathing. Those prostitutes were just gonna rip us off anyways, I swear. Anyways, after a couple more stops, we got back to work and finished our delivery, pulling into the city-states with nomads on our tail that the local law enforcement swiftly dealt with as usual. Sadly, we were on a string of bad luck. No recruits, not many trade goods either. We left the city-state empty-handed. Quick sailboat to Shift Drunken, which we haven't seen in almost 10 days, resulted in 2 nice amber shards to start another trade run. They also needed a package delivered to Strodorf, which was a quick and easy journey for us. After we arrived, they had a few dyes and paints to offer as well. Great timing. Weissenstadt was the last city on our normal route that we hadn't visited in a while, so we made it there before the day was through, and with the help of water teleportation, of course. I was really enjoying the rich life and having private yachts that allow us to zip around the world and save precious time. 2/3 of the run through and every hour was valuable. I was feeling confident for some reason and accepted to follow the tracks quest. We chased the thieves until morning. I mean, I'm not sure why. The extra benefit of sunlight was giving our slinger backgrounds like nothing. They had abysmal skill anyways. But we did have javelins, so I guess that kinda helped us a little bit. Anyways, it was a rabble fight though, so my confidence was well placed. We wiped the floor with them, and even the Radowon with his spear and shield was nice to help despite his low level. Just before we were headed back, this meddling necromancer was very unhappy that we ruined his heist of this rare coin collection, and offered us a bigger payout to give him the treasure. Like, what is the necromancer even gonna do with a rare coin collection? Hoard it for countless years after he discovers immortality? Then he'll pop out of hiding, show up at an antique auction and cash out for the big life? I don't know. But anyways, we crushed his life goals then and there and returned it to the rightful owner as we cared more about growing our relationships with the town. Maybe it was a coincidence, but after we did the right thing, we found a wonderful recruit to add to our ranks. A beast slayer by the name of Valoran was decently priced and had great potential. I was happy to be finally sitting on 4 abled combat defenders for this group. We spent some time planning perks and buying gear upgrades for our bros. Definitely wanted them to be in tip-top shape for any future fights. Just before we left the big city, we grabbed their trade goods and we ventured eastward by ship to continue our trade run. Krakenwater was still unhappy, but as we headed east past the mountains, we saw the end of a successful bullying campaign and decided this could be some nice free XP for our bros. Oh, and maybe cleaning up the streets could be a moral and just thing to do? Nah. Just free XP, of course. Anyways, you know the story with Rabble, complete pushovers. Even though a practically 4 vs 13 fight this late into the game with this much gear, they didn't stand a chance. No one escaped our blades, and we got a decent 100-ish XP, 85 bucks, and some basic loot for our efforts. Man, it was still daylight on day 66 when we reached Sagao. The power of water travel definitely saves time in this game. Anyways, the big city was still BFFs with us, and we grabbed all of their dyes and paints as usual. Icing on the cake to finish our trade run was the coincidence of a caravan headed to Al Anwar that needed protecting. Don't know why we were able to be hired for it, but I can't say no to free money and camping. But what do you know, the next day we got attacked by nomads. It was only indebted in slingers, so other than a couple of small hits coming our way, we cleaned up the sands quite nicely for some basic loot again. But the XP and caravan survival was the better reward, to be honest. We rolled into town just before nightfall, pocketed a nice profit of 2,105 bucks from all the trade goods we collected, and we were very happy to have a couple of level ups for the bros as well. Now I feel bad for forgetting this for such a long time into the playthrough. Profits could have been even higher if I had remembered this important purchase when we had our party size increase on the night of the day 39. We definitely had the money to spend back then on this improved method of money making. I'm of course talking about the retinue slot secured chests. This upgrade can definitely improve a trader's gameplay, but the forgetful snowman here didn't capitalize it until day 67. What a surprise. Anyways, we have it now, so we'll slowly cash in on more trade goods from every city on the map. I also bought the cook's equipment, but I can't utilize it at the same time because we have no free slots at the moment. The next morning we attempted to leave the desert for more trade, but the greenskins must have caught wind of an easy fight and chased us back. I obviously rang 911 and tried to assist with the citizens' arrest, but the cops were too slow, bogged down by the sand that they literally patrol every day for the city that employs them. The cops kept slowly chasing, but I was like, whatever, they can deal with it. I'll head back since the road is clear. Nope, rabid desert dogs, aka hyenas, saw us as a free meal exposed out here on the sands. So when the going gets tough, the tough follow the police around the desert for safety in numbers. I mean, it works, so don't judge me. Funnily enough, the Southern Army did kill a different roaming band of desert orcs as we followed them and returned to the city-state. Feeling like we just had enough of the desert, it was time to leave. Wait, you thought it'd be that easy? Well, I did too, but no. This time nomads popped out of nowhere, but this time the cops were quick to get rid of them. Phew, 3 days. Literally 3 days was how long it took for us to get out of this godforsaken sandy death trap with our heads intact. Day 71 was a relief, but not a complete relief, as we were still chased by yet another party of nomads as we tried to leave. So our stop at Sagao had to be brief as we continued our escape. Sadly, they had been raided recently, but still had some dyes left in the market, so we grabbed what we could and kept heading west to lose our pursuers. Along the way, we found a source of the constant bandit raids by the mountain pass. There was a bandit camp really close to the road, and it looked like the caravan was getting it raided right before our our eyes. So we put our Good Samaritan clothes on and stuck it to the bandits by rushing to the caravan's aid. 2 caravans are better than 1, and those bandits were in for some revenge. Most of them were rabble, but a couple of thugs mixed in, so I couldn't be reckless. I wasn't completely worried though, as it was theoretically a 20 versus 16 fight. We focused mainly on the middle flank, keeping our bros together and playing it safe. Talib got a miracle roll of 1 with his sling to crush the skull of a rabble, but other than losing a few ballsy caravan hands, the fight went rather well, and we were rewarded with 138 bucks and a bit of XP and loot for our valiant efforts. We felt good by saving our fellow caravan from certain doom. Night fell and Krakenwater wasn't doing well and had no good quests, so we shipped over to Shriftdrunken and camped till morning. Since the village was doing well, we knew they'd have their shards for an acceptable price, and we were mostly right. 297 wasn't amazing, but with 13% barter, we could make a profit. Then I figured, why not double back to Krakenwater? Maybe their prices weren't so bad as I initially thought. And yes, what a surprise! They were recently raided, but their prices were great. 3 more shards into the stash. Another ship to Weiss's stat, and a quick purchase of their goods had our stocks really filling up in no time at all. To put icing on the cake, they even offered us a caravan to Sigao. We couldn't refuse. Not long into the journey, we came across an army of children. Curious, we asked why, because why would there be an army of children anywhere, right? The 15-year-old leader said they're on a crusade north to rid the world of savages. We also know them as barbarians, but I guess they're just savages these days. Now I hear you, us adults know that this occurrence is a suicide mission, but sadly I don't think the kids knew that this was the case. If this was any normal gameplay, I'd probably rob the misguided and stupid kids. However, remember boys and girls, the game is getting harder. We don't have such a strong party. Getting injured from fighting kids while defending a caravan would just let the next ambush be our last. So against my moral code, we tell the kids they should go home to their mummies and daddies, cause the real word is very scary. Unsurprisingly, the zealot kids laugh in our face and don't waver from their ordained mission. They even spout the fact that their parents know where they are and support what they're doing. Well, my conscience is clean, and theirs will be too when that's spilt across the snow. And after that kid and army encounter, we uneventfully and safely arrive at our destination. Sadly, we took a bunch of injuries whilst training, but the experience was worth it. It's night when we arrived, so a camp till morning did us well. Our most favorite city was shining bright as we stepped into the morning lit marketplace. The power of our new retinue purchase was already in effect. Looking at the 13 brand new goods on display in the shops felt really nice today. We moseyed on down to our favorite selling city-state, Al Anwar, and arrived before nightfall to cash in our profits, totaling a very nice 4,326. Beautiful stuff. We were also happy to see that the goods on sale were also well priced. So we bought them all up and headed back north. Though on our way out of the desert, the fastest spacebar in the west saved us from what would be a devastating ambush of 13 hyenas. Nighttime vision absolutely sucks. I have a history of getting hit at night, so this was way too close for comfort. Luckily, we were able to bring them back to the Popo and helped corral them to their death by abusing game mechanics. Legally abusing game mechanics, might I add. If it wasn't in the game, then it wouldn't be there for me to abuse. Great logic, I know. Day 75, 3/4 of the way through, and we were feeling mildly okay. Dangerous enemies were all around, but we were still able to keep our heads and profits intact. On this day, we successfully escaped the desert once again, as we returned to our favorite Sigao. No refresh of stock, but a caravan headed west was a nice way to start a new trade run. Immediately after we left the city surrounds, we spotted a random kid up in a tree, trying to get his bouncy ball that was stuck on the roof of his house. So he asked us, as we passed by, for some help. I felt like this was a simple problem, and a simple solution could work. So yes, we tried to help the kid. Luckily for the kid, we succeeded in getting his ball back as Manowar vaulted off of Valoran up onto the roof and effortlessly handed the ball back to the kid. Happy days, and we continued the caravan with a smile on our faces as a kid is reunited with his toy. We would hate to think what would have happened if we failed, right? Anyways, we pressed on. In the evening of the next day, we approached the crossroads at the same time some peasants and brigands were approaching. Due to our numbers and having random peasants nearby, I felt as though the brigands would scare off easily. But the complete opposite happened, and the ambush dragged the poor peasants into the fight. It was 23 versus 18, but this was the first fight we had to deal with brigand raiders, the next level of brigands. Stronger enemies that usually have pretty decent armor and sometimes a dangerous weapon to boot. Not good for peasants or even us if we weren't careful. Unfortunately for us, the raiders were scary. One with a pike and one with good armor, shield, and a spear. I tried to keep our bros in the center and close together so they could support one another. This was a great fight for nets, so our backliners were super helpful in holding down those dangerous opponents. As much as we had a numbers advantage, I was still rightfully concerned as the dude with the pike was escaping my efforts to pin him down. Why the selfless rotates, eh? The spear guy was also scary and hard to get without putting bros in danger. The bottom flank cleaned up pretty nice, but those two raiders up top were causing problems. Caravan hands and peasants were slowly falling one by one. The spear dude had a net on himself and he didn't even care. Metal AF. And whilst I was worrying, the pike dude got a lucky hit in, and I was scared that he might take someone down with him. My worry got the better of me, and I advanced Ramadan from the high ground to take out this pike. A cut to the head, but he was left on 1 HP. No way. The net on him slowed him down just enough that Eggard was barely faster than him, and a 76% easily crumpled him to the ground. All that's left was a few flanking thugs, but mainly that scary spear wielder. We were constantly missing him and not having a good time. Valoran missed 2 76s with his accurate spear, and even though we were winning at this point, a few focused hits back our way could have had a bro go sideways. But this was where the hero of the battle stepped in. Remember I said some peasants got dragged into the fight? Yeah? Well, peasants suck. Nothing more to the story. I'm kidding. It's not about peasants sucking though. They're useless. But it's what came with the peasants. That was the hero. See, Legends has added extra enemies in the game. That is well known. But some of those special enemies are weapon specialists. Hear me out. Many weapons get obsolete as the game progresses, but Legends has perks that allow some early game weapons to stay fairly relevant into mid and late game. Pitchforks, sickles, poacher bows, blacksmith hammers, just to name a few. And since I don't like reading, I didn't notice the specialized fighter was among us. A miner was helping us clobber the south flanks more easily, and at the last moment when all my attacks failed, he stepped up to the raider, smacked him in the face with the pickaxe, and sealed our victory. Glad he was on our side, eh? Due to my caution and selfless sacrificing of peasants and caravan hands, the only real damage we took was from that pike, so it was a very nice victory for the company, and our first brush with raiders went rather well. Funnily enough, not all the peasants died as well, so the surviving ones left the scene and just went about their day. No hard feelings, right? We successfully completed the caravan, and with the extra XP rewarded, we got a handful of levels we'd been waiting for a while. Barter percent perks were unlocked, and in total we pushed our barter percent from 13% to a whopping 18%. Definitely a lovely upgrade. Now, also a nice surprise at this point was my lack of awareness of how much effort we were putting into Weissenstadt. We were practically allied to the town with regards to relations. They absolutely adored us, which was awesome. Even more than Sigao because of a certain woman kicker who will stay unnamed. Regardless, this resulted in a lovely profit of 2,635 for our stock of southern goods, and we were able to buy the goods for the cheapest I've seen in a while. Peat bricks at 86 is unheard of, at least normally for me. Feeling good, we restocked our nets and headed out on a follow the tracks quest for more easy XP, as long as it was just rabble. Surely enough, we only had to fight rabble, and no need to commentate on it. It was a breeze. I even let a guy with a stick reach our back ranks and wasn't even fazed by it. We mowed them all down very nicely, and Valoran got to level 5 as a result. We returned to town, accepted an eastbound delivery, but camped till morning to see if the town would refresh before we departed. In the early hours before we could walk into the market, Espen approached us and mentioned wanting to peddle some goods again. His addiction was acting up. He was successful back on day 30, mind you. It is day 78. But, you know what? How can I say no? We're a trading company, and this guy is after my own heart with his love for money. And to no one's surprise, he pulls through once again, this time with $150 profit and another permanent resolve to his name. Our trusted peddler was enjoying the trading life, and we were proud of our boys' endeavors. Unfortunately, the markets weren't restocked, but a quick ship ride to Shift Drunken and Krakenwater bought us cheap amber shards as usual. It was after leaving the village that we came across the first free mercenary party just cleaning up the streets outside the city. Weirdly enough, they were employed by the Blue faction, practically near the top of the map. No idea why they were down here, but any group of mercenaries plus a swordmaster killing bandits is a friend of mine. Soldier on, buddies. Initially, we were sad when we stopped by Strodorf. They had ambushed caravans. However, good relations and our newly improved 18% barter actually made their prices bearable. Nice. This was an amazing sign that we were starting to break the game. Bad events meant to ruin trade supply were no longer a big concern for our profit-inclined party. A quick trek through the mountain pass to Ellengrube, and our delivery was complete. Sadly, they had terrified villagers, and we couldn't fix that problem with barter percent, so trading was out of the question. Instead, they were offering a quest that I hadn't seen in this playthrough yet. A usually easy quest that asks you to help scout out and clear the ruins of one of the locations that have been raided recently, in order for them to be able to fix it back to working condition. This quest is a great way to speed up the repairs of a town. As ruined watchtowers no longer support a defending army, ruined mines and other trade good production facilities will no longer produce trade goods for the town. Most of the time, the quest is super easy, and sometimes it's just free money. So this was a no-brainer to me to help the big city with their ruined watchtower. And sure enough, we found the ruins were in ruins and completely occupied. A free quest indeed. This didn't immediately fix prices, so we headed south, checked in at Sudfest, found good selling prices, but because I was greedy and thought the city-states would give us more for our goods, we passed on. We camped outside Sigao to pass the night away and grabbed their beautifully priced dyes and paints as usual. A little more camping before we set off had us run into a traveling monk on the roads. I immediately recognized this as the traveling ale seller, and even though we didn't win the dice roll to get free ale, I felt like the company had deserved a good drink for all the glorious profits we've accumulated over the last couple of months. Drinks all around and spirits were high as we delved once again into the fateful desert for profitable coin. And before night fell, we had traded our entire stock for a whopping 5,081 crowns. Funnily enough, it was the exact same price we would have gotten in Sudfest, but at least it wasn't less. It was also wonderful to see their goods were very well priced in return, so we bought them all and headed back out of the desert, escorting a caravan to the castle of Sudfest. We didn't stop at Sagab, but just as we passed the city, Radowin spotted some glinting in the dark shadows of a crack in the dry ground. Something shiny and a means to obtain it, I was all in. Gotta think of those profits, right? Well, sadly, no dice. We rolled bad and failed. We only found rusted pieces of metal, no use to anyone. And to make things worse, poor Eggard took a hit to the head as a rock broke free and he suffered a severe concussion, one of the worst temporary injuries. Ouch. We hung our heads, one of us more than the rest, and continued the caravan. We reached the castle by the afternoon of day 82, and we were able to make a decent profit of $23.91. We considered buying the training equipment on sale for $9K, but decided against it as we needed to spend our time on making more profits instead of slowly training our boys. We finally treated the concussion and camped the night away just outside of Ellengrube. This was a good choice, as the big city was happy once again and selling their goods at more than decent prices. Happy with our purchase, we continued our usual trade run through the mountain pass and arrived at Strodorf in the dead of night. We decided to camp till morning as usual, but a random man sitting next to a hole piqued our interest, because why not? We asked to see what he's got down there, and for $10 he pulls the sheet back and reveals a fully grown Alp, just sitting in the hole, seemingly captured, but used as this man's freak show cash grab. We immediately decide that it's a serious threat and it needs to be killed. Remember, Alps literally kill people, and this guy is just one sitting in a hole. Who knows what would happen to the townsfolk if it escaped? Luckily, we had an expert beast slayer among us, Valoran, and he knows exactly how to deal with it. Oh, and he also breaks the ceiling for the idiot just sitting there by saying you can't actually capture Alps by shoving into a hole. It's actually just sitting there biding its time, eventually harvesting your mind slowly until you're nothing but a husk of a man. Yeah, Alps are the real deal. Rough stuff. Oh, and Valoran finishes his badass speech by knocking an arrow into the now toothy grin of the Alp. Very cool indeed. We get $25 and an Alp skin for our troubles as we just saved this dude and however many other townies' lives. After the eventful night, morning draws on day 84, and even though the small village has caravans raided, they still have one die to sell at an okay price. Oh, and they also ask us if we can protect their next caravan, hoping it won't have the same fate. Well, we, who are well known for our caravan safety, accept it and head towards Shift Drunken. We arrive just before morning, camp a bit, and then realize this town is also not doing so well. Sadly, we can't fix their nightmares because they're not offering that quest. I usually enjoy fighting Alps, especially with this company of net throwers, but instead they ask us to check on their ruin, Ambered Collector, a simple task. So we accept in hopes of helping the town further. However, disaster strikes. The worst disaster of all. Now come with me down memory lane. Remember how I said that checking out ruined city locations was mostly easy and safe? Well, this is the single instance of when it isn't easy or safe. Crunching the numbers, also known as checking the wiki, there is a 30% chance that it's spiders, and a 70% chance it's not, and something that's easier to deal with. We get ambushed by checking out the ruined Amber Collector and have to fight for our lives. Spiders are ruthless, so I'm rightfully worried at this time. The fight begins with the 8 of us staring down a rapidly approaching set of 8 human-sized spiders. Luckily, we have a single spot of high ground to help us out, but I definitely wish we had more. We throw as many nets as we can to keep them at bay, weapons swinging wildly as spiders have high dodge. Round 3, 4 spiders have been netted. Snorri has been webbed and poisoned. Not good. But at least Eggert has split a spider in half with his strong axe. Round 4 starts, and with 1 kill under our belt, we're down to 9 enemies on the battlefield. Wait, what? Oh yeah, for those unacquainted with spider fights, not only are they rather unfair to fight individually, webs reduce your stats and damage output by 50% and are hard and exhausting to break out of. But unfortunately, spiders also come with eggs that will constantly make more spiders. Not indefinitely, but expect a spider fight to finish with close to double the enemies you start with, as a general ballpark. So yeah, this was going to be a very rough fight to get through, if possible at all. To add insult to injury, the spiders were breaking free of our nets on 50% chances, and we're getting to our backline. We were simply just not killing them fast enough. So many whiffed attacks, and Snorri's insights were turning to mush. But just as you may have predicted, just as I had when noticing this fight, it was all over. Manowar, our player character surrounded by 3 gigantic spiders, was stuck in a web at 1 health and still poisoned. Nothing could save us now. The boys rallied and got 2 swift kills. 2 kills too late, and Manowar fell. Not even struck down. Swinging wildly with her fists as she went, the trading party's fate was secured. I was rightfully sad at this outcome, but if we were going down fighting to our last breath. The run was over, but we could still have our dignity. Round 7, with 3 important combat bros being stuck under webs, this was not looking like the fight of glory. Valoran was swiftly poisoned and got struck down. The spider that stole our high ground got confident, but at least we were down to 6 remaining spiders. Eggard cleared another spider in 2, 6 versus 5. Our backliners frantically trying to break our combat bros out of the webs, but to no avail. The high ground spiders jumped down for some stupid reason. This was an opportunity for Eggard to take the high ground back for himself, and with the extra surround bonus, Ramadan slices another spider to pieces, 6 versus 4. With webs and 3 spiders surrounding him, Radawon gets poisoned, but Eggard jumps from the high ground and another spider falls. Radawon is poisoned again! There's just not enough accuracy or fatigue to break these webs. A deep chest cut and the spider's on his last legs. But in the back ranks, Peddler Espen is poisoned, and Ramadan is webbed again. Snorri escapes for his web for a brief moment, but is immediately trapped once again. Weakened by the webs, Eggard fails to deliver a killing blow, but makes the spider panic and flee. This, however, is not enough to stop Snorri succumbing to the constant exposure to spider venom, as he is finally struck down. Ramadan is free. Eggard kills the fleeing spider, despite his reduced damage from the webs, and Snorri assists with the spider that ditched him to go after the axe-wielding friend. Espen takes an almost fatal dose of venom before Ramadan puts the final spider to the sword. And just like that, one of the easiest quests in the game sniped our player character. It just goes to show you that spiders kneel for no one. And poison and swarm tactics are a painful type of attrition that can take even a late game bro's life, in my experience. But in this case, there was no way to come out of that fight unscathed, and no way to run. Ambush style fight, and spiders are always faster than you. I'm just only sad that our other 2 brothers got struck down, but Manowar was like, peace out homies, ride or die with me. Absolute unfortunate luck right there. Couldn't make the 100 days, but a great run regardless. Plenty of profits, and I'll give you the whole rundown of the money we made, as we all love numbers. Total profits of 48,446 over the entire run. Total profits in the first 50 days was 23,028. Total profits since day 50, in the last 35 days, we earned ourselves 25,418. So that barter percent, and obviously our faster travel, was making a bigger difference. Our final barter percent was sold on 17.99, basically 18%. We didn't get it further than that, sadly, but we did have the potential to go further. Total money spent on goods successfully sold was $147,078. That is a lot of money spent for these profits. And a total profit of 33% was a lovely way to finish it on. Anyways, I truly hope you enjoyed the video. It took a lot of effort to string this one together, so comment, like, and subscribe would all be greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget you can watch the whole 7-hour-long VOD of this series over on my VOD channel, links in the description, and you can always catch me live on Twitch, or just chat with me in the community on Discord as well, also links in the description. Anyways, this was a long one, had fun playing and making it, hope to see you in the next one, see yas.